Jonathan Sanders from the Fairhaven Baptist to do the invocation. And please remain standing after he's finished for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Shall we bow and let's pray? Father, we're grateful that we have a city council and a mayor that wants to invite you to help in the leadership of our great city. Father, we lift up our mayor to you and our council to you, that you'd guide us tonight, that you strengthen them, that you give them the wisdom that they need to make the right decisions. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Norma, call the roll, please.
Sorry about that. Councilmember Gilbert Lopez.
Here.
Councilmember Steve Hudson.
Here.
Councilmember Robert Huddleston.
Here.
Mayor John Thompson.
Here.
Vice Mayor Jackie Henry.
Here.
Councilmember Gary Lewis.
Here.
And Councilmember Tatiana Murrieta.
Here.
Thank you.
And thank you, Norma. Under presentations, the first item, number 4, is a proclamation on World Pancreatic Cancer Day. Whereas an estimated 48,960 people will be diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in the United States, and 40,560 will die from that disease. And whereas pancreatic cancer is one of the deadliest cancers, is currently the 4th leading cause of cancer death in the United States, and is projected to become the 2nd by 2020. And whereas pancreatic cancer is the only major cancer with a 5-year relative survival rate in the single digits at just 7%. And whereas when symptoms of pancreatic cancer present themselves, it is generally late stage, and 73% of pancreatic cancer patients die within the first year of their diagnosis, while 93% of pancreatic cancer patients die within the first 5 years. And whereas approximately 830 deaths will occur in Arizona in 2015, and whereas pancreatic cancer is the 7th most common cause of cancer-related death in men and women across the world, and whereas there will be an estimated 367,000 new pancreatic cancer cases diagnosed globally in 2015, and whereas the good health and well-being of residents of Coolidge are enhanced as a direct result of increased awareness about pancreatic cancer and research into early detection, causes, and effective treatments. Now, therefore, I, John Thompson, Mayor of the City of Coolidge, Arizona, do hereby proclaim November 13th, 2015 as World Pancreatic Cancer Day in the City of Coolidge, and call upon the citizens of Coolidge to observe this day and realize its importance. Okay, the next item under presentations is item 5, monthly report and business spotlight recognitions by the Coolidge Chamber of Commerce. There's Lynn. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Our spotlight, we are just honoring mainly our sponsors for the annual banquet. Our top sponsors were CMEX, Crop Productions, and Florence Atham Hospital. We can't do these events without the help of our businesses. The other thing I want to tell you, we had our first mayor breakfast last week. It was great. Got great feedback from the business members that were there. It's a great opportunity where they can communicate. I want to thank you again, Mayor, for making that possible.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
On to our reinvestments. Pinal County Federal Credit Union, Desert Rose Baja Institute, Snap Fitness, Kiva Insurance and Financial, Mayor Thompson, Spirit of Joy, Laser Specialist, Coolidge Church of Nazarene, Arizona Jackpot, Casa Palomino, Coolidge Youth Coalition, Ho Cam Mobile Village, Cabot, Florence Hospital at Anthem. Our new members for September are Sue and Phil Bacon, Per Automotive, American Cancer Society. Our statistics for September are web page hits, 230,541, Our walk-ins was 643. This doesn't include the Saturdays and weekends that we still deal with people, versus when we were at the other place, 270. So our businesses are getting better views. Our phone calls are 292, and top states that visit us was Minnesota and Pennsylvania. Top foreign country, Vietnam. The Casa Grande Ruins visitors for September were 3,037. Year to date is 58,169. Upcoming events, and I'd like to formally invite all of you to the ribbon cutting for Per Automotive. That's right there on the northern. That will be on November 12th. The Patriotic Show with Jan Sandwich on November 13th at the library. We have fold forming, lapidary, literary arts, and make a gift workshop at the Artisan Village on the 14th. Our membership luncheon is on the 18th. The annual library book sale is on the 20th and 21st. And Navajo beadwork artists will be at the Casa Grande Ruins on the 20th and 21st. And Southwest Radio will have Wham! Payroll Robbery on the 21st. Also, Little Mermaid will have its debut at the 21st at the PAC, and the 28th we have Ormagabi Christmas ornaments decorations at the Artisan Village. For more information, see www.coolidgechamber.org. Any questions?
Any questions? Nope. Thank you very much. We really appreciate the job you do.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is call to the public. That's an item that anybody in the audience can come to the podium and for 3 to 5 minutes say their piece, voice their opinion on any item that they so desire. I would tell you that the council cannot comment back on that item on the advice of our legal counsel. So if there's anybody here that wants to come up and let us know what they're thinking, now's the time. Not seeing anybody jump into action, I guess we're going to move on. Next item is approval of the minutes, discussion and action. Item 6, City Council regular meeting, October 12, 2015. Item 7, City Council study sessions, October 26, 2015. And item 8, City Council regular meeting, October 26, 2015. Any corrections? And if not, I would look for a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Now we're going to move into the business items for consent. If there's any that any of you council people want to pull off of there, let me know what they are now so we can deal with them separately.
Mayor.
Yes,
Item
sir.
16 and 17, please.
All right, hold on. 16 and 17. Okay. Is that it? Nothing down here? Okay, thank you. All right, here we go. It'll be a while. Let me get a drink. Item number 9. Consider approval of the following street closures. First Street between Pinkley Avenue and Harding Avenue. Harding Avenue between First Street and Main Street. Main Street between Harding Avenue and Pinkley Avenue. Central Avenue between First Street and 4th Street. 4th Street between Central Avenue and Pinkley Avenue. Pinkley Avenue between 4th and 1st Street. For the Electric Light Parade and parade lineup scheduled to be held on Friday, December 11th, 2015. Item 10. Consider approval of a request from the New Hope Community Church to close Main Street between Seago Avenue and Elm Avenue for a Community Day and Health Fair event being held on Saturday, November 21st, 2015, from 8 a.m. until 1 p.m. Item 11, resolution number 15-33, a resolution of the mayor and the city council of the city of Coolidge, Arizona, authorizing submission of an application to the Arizona State Library, Archives, and Public Records for state grants and aid grant funds to be used towards the cost of construction for the enclosure of the library patio, and authorizing all actions necessary to implement and complete the activities outlined in said application. Item 12, consider approval to unfreeze $70,000 from the capital budget to purchase an email server and upgrade our Active Directory infrastructure. Item 13, consider approval to unfreeze capital sales tax funds for an amount not to exceed $12,000 and approve entering into a professional services agreement between the City of Coolidge and Lyle Sumac Associates, Inc. for the purpose of holding a City Council retreat on November 20th, 2015 to develop a strategic plan waiving the written bid requirements in the best interest of the city. Item 14, resolution number 15-34, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the City of Coolidge, Arizona, authorizing and directing the mayor to enter into airport development reimbursement grant agreement between the State of Arizona Department of Transportation and the City of Coolidge for a grant of state funds for the design of improvements to Taxiway B and Taxiway B4 at the Coolidge Municipal Airport. Item 15, consider approval of accepting the scope of services for an amount not to exceed $143,730.85 and the approval of the authorization of services for task order number 4 with Kimberly Horn to prepare design and engineering construction plans for Taxiway B and Taxiway B4 at the Coolidge Airport. 16 and 17 are pulled off. Item 18, consider approval of purchasing one 2001 Freightliner FL60 truck with roll-off from Alliance Refuge Truck in the amount of $37,730 for the Public Works Solid Waste Division, waiving the sealed bid requirements in the best interest of the city. I see there are some resolutions in there, Norma, so we'll need you to.
Will require a roll call
Okay.
once we get a motion in a second.
Motion to approve all is read, sir.
Okay, motion to second, all in favor? Need
roll call.
resolution. Go ahead.
Vice Mayor Henry,
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis,
Yes.
Councilmember Murrieta,
Yes.
Councilmember Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Hudson,
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston,
Yes.
and Mayor Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item number 16. Consider approval of entering a Fourth Amendment to lease agreement, Fourth Amendment, between the City of Coolidge and Coolidge Aviation LLC to amend the terms under Section 3.9 Fuel Facility relating to fuel sales at the Coolidge Municipal Airport. Okay, Councilmember Lewis.
Yes. Yeah, I'm not sure who. Evening, Mr. Miller.
Good evening.
Just wanted some clarifications. In reading this, it states that this will be reviewed on a 5-year basis.
Yes, that's the
Can you-
change. Under the current agreement, there is not a provision for renewing the amount of the nickel per gallon that we currently get under the lease agreement with Coolidge Aviation that was approved in 2008. Did not have a provision for us reevaluating, how the fuel flowage fee is. We want to make sure that we're in the market. We just recently looked at some surveys that were conducted by other airports to determine that 10 cents a gallon is a more appropriate market rate. So this will allow us every 5 years to look at the market and see if we're still in line or not, or if we have to increase it.
Is there a reason why we chose 5 years versus doing it yearly?
It just seemed 5 years was an appropriate time frame. I think every year it might be a little bit, but 5 years felt like it's
If the
appropriate.
5 years is approved, are we locked into not looking back at it for the 5 years?
Yes, that's correct. Be 5 years.
Mr. Fitzgibbons, could that be amended by a motion up here if the majority of the council wanted to review that every year? I mean, I don't know how much work it entails, but if all you got to do is call the surrounding airports to find out how much they're charging for gas, I don't know that that's a lot of work.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I think the one issue is, obviously, this is a amendment that both sides have to agree to, and I think as I understand it, Coolidge Aviation was willing to double what's being charged because there had been no increases in the 7 years or so since the first agreement went into place. But I'm sure Mr. Miller hasn't talked to him about an every year review
I'm not.
of this.
No, I have not. In fact, like I said, we are doubling the amount. We're actually every 5 years doing a review where the original lease had no provision for review. So we felt that seemed like a reasonable request. But I would have to go back as our council has suggested and talk to Mr. Recker to see if he would be willing to.
Yeah, I just think locking into a 5 years and we can't touch it for 5 years is kind of long, especially because we don't know what the economical landscape of the city is going to look like, or revenue. So I know 1 year maybe seems too quick for some people, but 2 years would be good too. But I think 5 years is a little long to lock ourselves into anything when it comes to fuel at the airport.
Councilmember Lopez.
Mayor, thank you, Rick. So if he says no and just leaves it the same, then what happens? Just stays at 5 cents and we keep going, right?
Yes, that's a possibility, yes.
Who decides the rate for the 5 cents, 10 cents? Who makes that decision?
It was in the actual original lease agreement with Coolidge Aviation, the 5 cents per gallon, and there was no escalator clause on it. Here what we're trying to do is correct that part of the lease and get the 10 cents per gallon, which we think is more standard now, and then say we'd come back and review it every 5 years.
And I will tell you that this did go to Mr. Recker. I know he talked to Bob Flatley. He did mention to me that he was okay with the agreement that was being presented tonight.
Well, it seems to me that there's some people that think it should be 2 years, but that's only on our side. If we amend this and go for a 2-year review, and he tells us no, then what are our options then? We don't have any?
Well, I mean, I think we could continue to try to negotiate with him and see if he wanted to, if he'd accept what's proposed now, which is the 5-year review.
Okay. Anything else over here?
No, Mayor, I think that, he has an agreement, a lease agreement that is 5 cents with no provision of revisiting it ever. And when does the lease agreement expire?
We'll be all long gone, right?
Yeah, I think it was many years in the future, 25 years.
It was definitely, it started out as 25, but there's a couple of options to renew it.
Okay, so he's come to the table and said that he's agreeing to give us 5 cents a gallon more and review it in 5 years.
Yes,
Otherwise, we can get possibly nothing whatsoever.
other than the 5 cents, the original 5
Right,
cents.
except for the 5 cents. I'd rather take a little bit of something than get nothing myself.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
if I may, I know, Charlie or Mr. Recker has put his own money in the building, the old hangar, and done a lot of improvements and done some things out there that nobody else would step up, especially when we were out there, years ago, and nobody's ever come forward and offered any money until he came up and offered that. So, I mean, not to say he's perfect by any means or anything like that, but at least he's offering, to increase the fuel, and he's open to it. So it shows that he's willing to work with us. So.
And then review it every 5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, the lease agreement we have, he'll pay 5 cents for probably until I'm dead.
Is that true? I mean, we don't really have an option there? If we're dependent upon his response?
Right. With regards to this provision is in the lease. I mean, the lease has a lot of provisions in it. There's a lot of escalator clauses about different things. I think the 5 cents per gallon, when it was entered into back in '08, was very standard. No one really talked. It's like the current gas tax, I think, has been in place for 20-some years or 30 years. And so nobody really saw the additional 5 cents tax, or not tax, but the amount the city was putting on it as something that would come back and increase.
Go ahead, Councilmember.
You know, I do agree with Councilmember Lopez. Charlie Recker has put a lot of money into the airport when other people have, but he's also gotten that in credit of lease credits in lieu of. So the money was going to be there, either he's going to pay it to us or he was going to make improvements. So it's not like it was really that good of a deed, went above and beyond the call. You know, we just spent over $500,000 on gas tanks. I think by all means we owe it to our citizens to have a better deal than this. You mean, and if Mr. Recker doesn't like it, we'll figure it out. You know, I think that the city needs to put the foot down and make the decisions and not be held by the bottom of the leg by Mr. Recker.
Well, the tanks, it wasn't, we didn't do those tanks just for him. We had to do some of those tanks for the liability that we had. So
city.
You know,
it wasn't
completely
just for
understand.
him. I mean, we did go out and spend $500,000 just for Mr. Recker to have nicer fuel tanks out there. We had to do it for the liability of the city of Coolidge. So it would cost us money. So I mean, you can't throw that we put those tanks in there just for him. We did. We had to do something. So it would cost us millions of dollars by the EPA.
It did save us fines, I agree, but it also increased his revenues by having those nicer tanks out there. And
He's giving
we're
us a little
getting
bit
10
of a
cents.
part of it.
Mr. Fitzgibbons, I've known you for a number of years in different capacities. I've never heard you say that there was a contract that couldn't be renegotiated or there weren't a mechanism to do something a little differently on this. Even if we voted to approve this tonight to get it going one way or the other, I think we could still revisit it, couldn't we? Or does this specifically lock us into
No.
nothing?
No, Mr. Mayor, I think you could, if council wanted to, council could approve the agreement as written with the stipulation that you'd like paragraph 3 to be 2 years, 3 years, that it be reviewed more often than it currently is being reviewed. I mean, we could do that with that amendment, or we could, or you could say that, you know, to approve the agreement and say we'll live with 5 years, but we'd like Mr. Recker to go to 3 years. I mean, you could do it that way too, and if he says no and stays at 5, it stays at 5. So, I mean, you could do it however you want to do that.
Ultimately, this is what the agreement is. This is what the deal is right now.
Right, and I think what you have to realize too is that this part of it is obviously in addition to the per gallon price of fuel, and there's going to come a point in time where, depending on what the city's looking for, I know when it was talked about a nickel per gallon before, the city wanted to keep that low because they wanted to encourage people to buy fuel from out there. And so the higher you put that up, I mean, there's going to be a point in time where you'll be outside the market. So, and right now, I mean, he's agreed to double it. And so, and then we'll come back and look at it in 5 years. That's what was discussed, and that was what was agreed to. If council wants to make a motion and see if the contract will pass as written, we can do that. Or you could make a motion to amend paragraph 3, however council wants to proceed.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
might also suggest to you that in the survey that was provided to me by one of the other airport managers, looking at that survey, the 10 cents a gallon is on the high end of the spectrum. There were several communities that were actually less than 10 cents. So he is looking at, you know, agreeing to something that's doubling what we have now, but it is higher than a lot of the other communities charge as well for a fuel flowage fee.
So, Mr. Fitzgibbons, do we have to name a specific amount of time? Could we put in there that it could be reviewed at the discretion of the council? On the
Or you could
rate?
say it could be reviewed at the discretion of the parties. I mean,
Parties?
I don't think it can't be a unilateral
Can't- okay,
contract.
so of the parties?
Yeah, you could say that, but having a specific year in there, you're required then to review it. I mean, just because it says 5 years doesn't mean we can't, if we feel we're way under market, go back to them, just like we're doing right now, and saying, hey, we'd like to renegotiate we don't want to wait 5 years. We notice that, you know, all the airports around us are charging 15 cents. We could ask them to do that just like, I mean, this This is how this all came up at this time.
Well, I mean, everybody, obviously, there's two sides here to this story already, and I have my own personal opinion on what ought to be happening to the gas at the airport, but that's not in this option. I do think, though, that if we have an option to renegotiate, and they've already got a deal, and we're already going to be, I mean, that is a consideration. If we price ourselves out of the market, how many people now are driving to Casa Grande to put gas in their car because we're too high in Coolidge? You know, they use the excuse, well, the gas is too high, it's volume. Well, you know, the more gas, the lower the price, the more you pump. So we're on the back end of the cycle again with our circumstances. I don't know that I want to get that way with the airport, even though I do agree with the 2 years. I think maybe we take the 5 years and we put that a clause in there that allows us to come back and look at it. Because right now, it stays, if we put the motion up and it loses, we're at 5 cents again, or still. So, all right, is there any more discussion? Okay, what's your pleasure?
Well, I make a motion that we approve agenda item 16 as read.
A second.
Okay. And that's with nothing to come back and review it, it's just to go 5 years?
Yeah,
We could go back, because you can still do it.
We can still do it, right?
Well, right now, yeah, as read means it says the lease shall be held 5 years from the effective date of the Fourth Amendment and every 5 years thereafter. It's saying that would review Section 3.9 that sets the aviation fuel. So
But you had said that if we approved it tonight, and like you said, the reason why this came up is because we're seeing that the other communities, so let's say in 4 years, we realize that everybody else is going up. So could we bring it back and make a Fifth Amendment to?
Well,
If Charlie
it has
says
to be, he'd have to agree to it, just like, I mean, right now, he's agreed to do this under the agreement. I think, just like you said, Councilwoman, we could definitely, he has to review it every 5 years, because that's what the amendment says, and that's what the parties would agree to. But if it's in 4 years, we notice a substantial change, sure, we could go to them and say, hey, we think we're way under the market, would like to redo this section. So.
Okay, well then there's been a motion and a second. I guess we're going to need to vote, and Norma, I'm going to ask for a roll call vote on this.
Okay. All right. Councilmember Hudson?
Yes.
Councilmember Lopez?
Yes.
Councilmember Murrieta?
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis?
No.
Vice Mayor Henry?
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston?
Yes.
And Mayor Thompson?
I wanted that, well, okay, yes.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, that passes. Number 17, resolution number 1535, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Coolidge, Arizona, establishing the Transit Authority Advisory Committee, setting forth the number of members and duties of the committee. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This evening we do have before you an item to create a Transit Advisory Committee. During our monitoring visit with the Arizona Department of Transportation, they informed staff that we could no longer have the council sit as an advisory committee, that it is a requirement of the Federal Transit Administration to have an actual advisory board that provides guidance on the transit program. So staff did go back to the City of Coolidge Code, provided a copy of that section of the code for you, and we are recommending the identification of a Transit Advisory Committee comprised of 7 members. However, because we do have a transit system here in the City of Coolidge called Cotton Express, as well as the CART system, Central Arizona Regional Transit, we are asking you to waive the requirement that the participants on the advisory committee are residents of the City of Coolidge, so that we actually can have regional representation, possibly for those individuals that would comment on CART. I'd be happy to answer any questions that council has. If it passes this evening, we will go ahead and advertise in the Examiner and on our website for applications in the buses as well, and then bring back to you for appointment later this year or early January those members that the subcommittee of council would recommend for appointment.
Well, thank you.
And just as Jill said, I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware, we had a quick modification to the resolution, just as Jill said, that we're waiving that part of our code where all the transit members or people of this committee would be from the city of Coolidge. That's in the recitals, and we noticed it wasn't in the body of the resolution, so we put it in the body of the resolution at section 4 and dropped everything down from there. It was just a slight change to the resolution.
It looks like there's not too many, it's designated on what you can be and what you've got to be in this. And is this federal, because of the federal
This is a federal
guidelines and the
requirement.
audit we just went through?
Yes, from the monitoring visit with the Department of Transportation, Mayor, this was one of the findings that we were not in compliance. And they have no recommendations on the size of committee, so that's why staff just went back to the code as to what is already in existence and recommendations for the city of Coolidge.
If I read that correctly, the majority of the people would still be on this, would still be from the city of Coolidge.
That is possible. There is a Cotton Express rider that is designated. Then the representatives could come from the regional area, but council could make that recommendation that the majority would have to be residents of Coolidge. That was not something in the resolution, but that definitely is something that could be added into a resolution if that's your desire. We just wanted to make sure there's at least representation from those individuals who ride that regional transit program as well.
And that is required.
That is required.
Okay, so it's not like you just waltzed in here tonight and decided you wanted to do this. We have to do it.
Correct. We have to have representation from our system here in Coolidge, representation from the regional system. We also must have representation from the disabled community, an agency representative or a disabled individual, and we must have a senior representative or a senior agency. Those are the 4 categories we have to have. The rest rounded out what we thought was a nice reflection on who was out there and who could have impact to grow our service.
That was a nice choice of words.
Took me a moment there.
When you talk about, did I read that wrong? Can a council member be on this?
No, we can't.
No?
Typically on the advisory committees, I don't remember anything in the city code that prevents a council member from being on it, but it has not been something that I've seen in practice in the past. Their recommendations would come forward to council for actual implementation. Again, this would be an advisory committee. They would have no authority to make any changes, but they would make recommendations to you regarding changes.
I was just curious. Okay. All right. In that case, any discussion?
If I pulled it, I just had a lot of questions. I asked it to be pulled, so I was curious if I get
Sure.
to ask one.
No, ask.
Okay. To go real quick what the mayor said about the council members being on it, under 4-1-2D, says no member other than on any board or commission currently in the city can serve with the exception of the personnel advisory board. Now, would that include city council? Because we're not really a board or a commission? Because there's nothing else regarding council members.
Doesn't that apply to where we ran into a problem years ago where we had one person on every board and commission because nobody would volunteer, so we had to use the same board and commission members for everything, library and rec and everything else?
Right.
Wasn't that what that was related to?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, you're correct.
I think so. Wasn't it? Yeah.
Mayor, Dennis, isn't there a conflict if you sit on a advisory board to yourself? Because you're already on a council. So how can you sit on advisory to advisory? So if I was on this committee, I'd basically be steering the committee the way I wanted to because I sit up here, and then I'm actually, advising myself. Isn't that a conflict of interest?
Right. I think it definitely could be a conflict of interest. And typically when you set advisory committees and things like that, you want to hear people's opinions.
Sure.
I mean, if you didn't want to hear people's opinions, you wouldn't create a committee.
I wasn't
And I
trying to
think
get
with
on
the
the
federal
committee. I
gov-
was just asking.
Well, they're going to make recommendations to the council. And so then council can take those recommendations or not. I think under the federal system, they just want to make sure everybody is fairly represented and council gets to hear everyone's concerns.
And Mayor, the only reason I mention is we have to deal with conflict with federal money, and they're different than the state. and they're very strict. And so that's the only reason I brought it up, is because sometimes you get yourself in hot water and not mean to, and that's, the only reason I brought it up.
Mayor?
What?
I'd like to make that provision that the majority of the people on that advisory board be from Coolidge. The citizens of Coolidge are the ones that are paying for.
At least 4, maybe?
Yes.
The majority?
I would like to see that.
Okay, well, and if there is a motion, whoever makes it could include
Yeah,
that. Go ahead,
I'm not
Councilmember.
done.
Go ahead.
And then, there's 2 neighboring cities who are involved with the transit, right? Castro Grande and Florence?
And also Pinal County.
Pinal
The-
County.
All 3 of them invest and pay a match commitment for the Central Arizona Regional Transit along with the city of Coolidge.
city
So
of
there's 4
Coolidge.
funders.
If I remember right from the budget times, the city of Coolidge bears the brunt of that.
No, it does not. The city of Coolidge pays the cost for the Cotton Express, which is the local transit system here within the corporate limits of the city of Coolidge. The match commitment for Central Arizona Regional Transit is paid equally by all 4 participants, and it's a little over $23,000 a year.
I remember wrong then. That's all I have.
That's it?
Yeah.
Councilmember Mariano, no? How about you, Vice Mayor? Okay, then. This is one that is a resolution. I need a motion if the discussion is done.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the item with the stipulation that majority of the members are from the city of Coolidge.
Do you want to set a number, or just say majority?
How many are on the board? 7?
7.
So 4 would be a majority.
4 or 5? I don't know.
Second.
Okay.
4. Second 4.
The second was for 4?
4 is majority, so.
I said
Your
4 or
motion
5.
was 4.
4. Let's go
Okay.
4.
And you seconded at 4?
Second.
Okay.
We legal?
We're always legal.
Aren't you the same guy that said, let's bring it on a while back? Norma, I think we need a vote.
Yes, we do. Vice Mayor Henry.
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis.
Yes.
Councilmember Murrieta.
Yes.
Councilmember Lopez.
Yes.
Councilmember Hudson.
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
And Mayor Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I don't need a motion to move out of the meeting into a public hearing, do I? No? Okay. Item 19, a public hearing to receive public comments on a request for a major general plan amendment submitted by Evergreen Development Company to change the general plan land use designation on approximately 17.5 acres of land from the current classification of rural ranchette to urban neighborhood. This is a public hearing. Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. As you mentioned, this is public hearing only. There'll be no request for a decision by the mayor and council this evening. That will come at a later meeting. At the end of last year, and at the end of every year, we establish a public participation plan where we consider major general plan amendments to the general plan that was approved by the voters. And what we're talking about this evening is a public hearing involving a piece of property at the southeast corner of Attaway Road and Highway 287. On this exhibit, the colors are the current land uses that are illustrated on the city's land use policy figure. The yellow area is what we call urban neighborhood. The brown area is what we call rural ranchette, the larger ranchette properties. The request this evening for public hearing is this 80-acre parcel that sits, as I mentioned, at the southeast corner of Attaway and 287, has a current designation of rural ranchette, and what's being proposed is to change that to yellow to allow for urban neighborhood. The reason behind this is Evergreen did receive a rezoning approval of this property well before the general plan was approved by the voters. The rezoning of this property was for a future shopping center. Seems like a reasonable location as the area builds out at the intersection of 2 major highways, the highway and the major arterial, that you may someday see an urban scale shopping center. I'm not talking like a mega mall or anything like that that would be typically found on your freeway corridors, but something on the size of maybe a Fry's Marketplace, like you see on Pinal Avenue on the north end of Casa Grande. Again, this is way off in the distance. That's what this general plan is a big picture. So that's what the public hearing is for tonight, just to allow public comment on this proposed change. This actually will go before the council at the next council meeting for your approval of the proposed land use change. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have at this time.
Mr. Miller, is this something that the property owner requested, or are we doing cleanup again like we are on a lot of our zoning issues?
Keep in mind, this is not a zoning matter as much as it is a land use matter, but you are correct. When we did the general plan update, we identified this as rural ranchette when in fact we probably, given the zoning approval that was previously granted, we should have probably showed this as urban neighborhood. That's exactly right.
So it's basically we're cleaning it up.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions down here?
Mr. Miller, just quickly, if you could explain to council how many times you can do major amendments in a
Yes.
year, because we
Okay.
have a couple new council members that haven't seen this before.
Very good. Thank you, Dennis. If you look at our general plan update, we have what we call major amendments to the general plan and minor amendments to the general plan. The state law allows you to consider minor amendments anytime during the year, but there are certain amendments that do require the councils can consider only one time a year, and those are the major amendments that would take something from a very low density rural ranchette to something that's much higher in density. Can only be considered one time a year. So regardless of whether it's at this location or anywhere else you see in the brown, if we go from brown rural ranchette to something that allows for a much greater density, that can only be considered by the council one time a year. In December, we'll be putting together a new public participation schedule for next year's process. We did have a public hearing at the Planning and Zoning Commission to consider this request, and I believe it was October the 9th. And so tonight is the public hearing for council, and then the 23rd would be the final decision by council.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Since it is a public hearing, I guess I should ask if there's anybody out here in the public that has any comments regarding item 19 on the agenda. Seeing nobody approach, then I would see if there's a motion.
No, Mr. Mayor, you can just close the public hearing.
Oh, close the public
Yep,
hearing.
you
All
can
right,
do it
we'll
yourself.
Close that one and move into item number 20. Receive public comments on a major general plan amendment to the general plan 2025 update that will increase the planning area boundary by 160 acres on the northwest corner of Highway 87 and Hannah Road, and to establish business and commerce as the land use classification for this property on the city's land use policy map. Mr. Miller, that's you again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'll start with this slide. This is, again, a public hearing, no recommendation this evening. The final recommendation on this will be the 23rd, much like the last case. This amendment was initiated by the city of Coolidge staff. The last council meeting, the council approved the Paso Fino annexation. You recall that annexation situated here involving 160 acres at the northwest corner of Highway 87 and Hannah Road. Our current city limits is in the shaded area to the east and to the a little bit further to the north. This is where the Corrections Corporation of America sits, CCA facilities. Because of the annexation, this property was not previously included in the general planning area boundary. So tonight's public hearing is to consider comments on expanding the planning area boundary in this vicinity. Because this property is still technically in the county because the annexation is not final, the county land use designation for this property, as you can see on this side of the exhibit, that's the 160 acres. The county designation for this property is employment. The recommendation staff is providing with this expansion is business and commerce. The whole 160 acres would be designated as business and commerce. We have been talking to this property owner. This property owner, I think, as I mentioned in the annexation, has been interested in development of this property for possible hospitality and some retail, which this land use classification would allow for if they, when they come in and later do the zoning for this property. So, simply put, expanding the planning area boundary, 160 acres, which would have the effect of increasing our current planning area boundary from 182.8 square miles to 183.1 square miles, just adding 160 acres. And then secondly, to apply the land use, business and commerce here on that 160 acres. And then tonight, again, is just a public hearing to receive feedback on this proposal. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions down here? How about over here? Does anybody from the public have any comment? If they do, please approach. Okay. I don't see anybody approaching, so I guess we're going to get out of the public hearing business.
Yeah, close the public hearing?
Close the public hearing. Need a motion to close the public hearing?
Nope. You can do that yourself.
All right, I close the public hearing. There you go.
You're driving the car on that one.
Are we legal?
We're always legal.
Nice job. All right. Business under regular items. Item number 21, ordinance number 15-16, an amended ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of Coolidge, extending and increasing the corporate city limits of the city of Coolidge, Pinal County, state of Arizona, pursuant to the provisions of Title IX, Chapter 4, Article 7, Arizona Revised Statutes and amendments thereto by annexing thereto certain territory contiguous to the existing city limits of the city of Coolidge, consisting of 160 acres, more or less, and located within Section 9 of Township 7 South, Range 8 East of the Gila and Salt River Basin Meridian, Pinal County, Arizona, known as the Pasofino Annexation, and authorizing the rezoning of said territory from the Pinal County designation of general rural to the city designation of agricultural. Okay, any discussion on this?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, this is really an amendment to the prior annexation ordinance, as you've mentioned. What we're doing in this amendment is applying the initial zoning on this property, which we did not do in the original annexation ordinance. So we're applying initial zoning that's comparable to what the county zoning was immediately prior to the annexation decision, going from general rural, the county zoning, to agricultural, the city zoning. That's what we're putting in this ordinance. That's the purpose of the amendment, is strictly to address the zoning issue.
And then the entire annexation becomes, if this passes tonight, Mr. Mayor, the entire ordinance would be effective 30 days from tonight. So,
Thank you, sir.
no problem.
If there are no questions, I would look for a motion.
Motion to approve is read, sir.
Second.
Okay, well, Norma, I think that's it. Got a motion in a second.
Councilmember Huddleston?
Yes.
Councilmember Hudson?
Yes.
Councilmember Lopez?
Yes.
Councilmember Murrieta?
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis?
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor Henry?
Yes.
And Mayor Thompson?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Item number 22, discuss the filling of the part-time fire captain position. Full-time, I'm sorry. Full-time fire captain position, discussion only. Chief?
Mayor and Council, this was just a discussion item. During the budget, we approved the bringing back the fourth position, and I just wanted to kind of update the council on where we're going with this position and kind of what we're doing with our department. One of the caveats of this position was we had to wait till we had the MV Coolidge money in, which was expected in October. So that money has arrived. We've gotten through the month of October. So we're going to add a captain position. Our goal is to hire from within. We're going to do a process. We're not just going to pick anybody. I'm going to do a process. Those that are interested will give us a letter of interest, application, whatever's appropriate. We're going to do a short written test. We'll do a practical, and what we'll do during practical is we'll put up a fire scene on the screen. The candidate will then act like their incident commands. We'll have people playing roles behind them, and they'll lead us through the incident, what they would do, and then we'll try and throw them a couple curveballs, see how they react, make sure that they make appropriate decisions. We'll also set up a scenario where they teach a new firefighter a skill and see their ability to interact with a volunteer or a new employee and how they're going to handle that situation. And then after that, we'll do an interview, a panel interview, and then a chief's interview, and we'll choose from there. Once we fill that position, that may or may not, depending if it comes from the volunteer side or from the career side, may or may not create an opening for a firefighter EMT position to be filled. Once we fill, so that we have all 4 positions filled, we're going to divide the crew so that we have 2 and 2. We're going to work 12-hour shifts and cover all 7 days of the week from 8 in the morning till 8 at night. With that, 1 week the guys will have, I believe it's 36, right? And then the next week they'll have 48. And then the following week, so they'll just keep swapping like that. So in a 2-week cycle, it balances out. Now, firefighters, we work what they call a 53 and 3 schedule, is what most people refer to it as. So they don't hit overtime until they hit 53 hours in a single week. So at no time will this generate overtime for the city. And with that, we're also getting ready to hire some volunteers, and we'll start that academy. We're starting that process of recruiting right now to backfill any positions that we create doing that. And hopefully we'll have them through that hiring process, which we have to do backgrounds and medical physicals and make sure they're fit to do respiratory devices and what have you. Hopefully we'll have that started somewhere around Christmas, first of the year. So I'm open to questions, comments.
Well, I'm going to start by asking, I'm kind of curious now that you mentioned that, Chief. How are you going to handle the situation where they have two-member really teams, if you will, and somebody goes on vacation? One of your full-time guys goes, and you've only got 4 full-time people. How are you going to do that?
Well, kind of what we've done now. There's times that if it's during the week, I'll jump on the truck with them. That doesn't generate any overtime. We're also going to open it up to volunteers and allow them to get on the truck, and we can give them a morning stipend and an afternoon stipend to help compensate them for that time. We can't really do a part-time. That starts getting into some legal issues and some complications with their volunteer firefighter retirement system, but we can do other things to help them out if they want to fill those positions in.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Mayor. How long is it? I know I just did. How long has it been since the volunteer firefighters had any increase in their stipend or the amount they're paid? I don't think it's been.
Mickey left.
He was here. I know.
It was before my time. I honestly could not tell you. I do know that it is limited by the IRS to being nominal. So I don't even know what they consider nominal at this point in time.
I just know we haven't done it. Maybe in the future when we start looking at everybody's, try to include them and
right.
see if, because we have, what are they, 25? Is that how many?
It's it varies depending on their rank and if it's training or a call, but it's generally in the area of 15-ish.
Yeah. Okay.
So I know some departments are doing 20 up north, but I don't know of anyone that's doing more than that.
Okay. And I like your idea of the interview process. Sounds really good. And,
right. Yeah, because
we
want to make this fair, and we want to have the best person, not just whoever I felt was next or who's been here the longest. We want to, and we've been doing a lot of training. We've had a lot of training open to these guys, both the career guys and the volunteers. We've sent them to State Fire School. We've had a couple go to National Fire Academy. We've got a couple more that have applied and are we're getting ready to send to the National Fire Academy. Beautiful thing about National Fire Academy is they get to meet people from all over the U.S. and sometimes even from outside the U.S. They'll get some students from Canada and different places. And it costs us, we pony up the money for the airline, and as long as they complete the class. They don't even have to pass it, just complete the class. We get reimbursed for that. So then we're out $150, $200 for the meal ticket while they were gone. And volunteers can go as well as career guys. We sent guys to State Fire School. I had 6 scholarships. We sent 6 guys. Broke even, cost us 0. So
Awesome.
there is good training out there, and these guys have been taking advantage of it. And we've really progressed a lot. And I feel that we can fill the captain's position in-house.
Yeah, I've heard some positive comments, so thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Chief, is one of the requirements for this full-time fire captain that they reside in the city limits?
The volunteers have that. I don't know that that necessarily applies to the career guys.
What if a guy that lives within the city limits, if he's applying, would he get to maybe have some extra points because he lives in the city limits?
We're definitely going to give preference to someone that's coming from the volunteer pool. And so I don't necessarily see anyone from outside applying for these positions. So in essence, whoever applies for this position, if they come from inside, is already going to be inside the city limits or at least on the edges.
Okay.
Within the boundaries that have been drawn.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, before I come to this side, Mr. Fitzgibbons, that's the age-old battle of residency requirements. Where do we stand with things of that nature? I mean, there are some people up here that believe that police chiefs and the fire chiefs and the higher-ranking people in city government should reside in Coolidge. If you're willing to take a big salary home and sometimes to another county, I'm personally not in favor of that. I am not speaking for anybody else, but I'm not in favor of it. But what is the story with residency requirements? Can we do something like that?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of council, yeah, councils can put residency requirements on. I mean, I think this council, not this council, but the council before, that was debated, I think, several times, the positives, the negatives of doing something like that and limiting candidate pools and things like that. So, but if council can make an amendment to the city code to say which positions they would prefer have, or, be residents of the city of Coolidge.
Okay, yeah, because I can, not so much here, but I can tell you, Pinal County, a lot of the big salaries drive home to Maricopa County every night. So, what would we have to do to go about making this position? I know what the chief just told us, but I don't anticipate somebody from somewhere else coming in and sweeping into this position. However, on the other hand, I would rather not rely on luck. What would we have to do if we're going to go through with this to make sure it was somebody from here that.
Well, I think council's made its position on this known to the chief, and he'll be the one selecting the individual. We do have the position description here in the requirements. Council could, it's not before council, but we could bring it back to you and add that, but I'm not sure you want to go position by position in the city. It might be better to identify which ones you want that we could put in the city code, and it will be in the code.
Well, we are having a retreat in November, and I think that's certainly something. I know there were some things that were taken out by other councils regarding residency requirements, and I think we need to re-examine that. At least I think so. I don't know about anybody else. But I know that when we have the retreat, I'm going to ask that be on the agenda. But anyway, I think you've kind of got our...
Yeah, Mayor, I was just pointing out, if you had 2 qualified candidates.
Right.
And one lived within the city limits and the other one didn't, I would prefer to hire the one. They were equally qualified for the position. I would rather have the one that lived in the city limits than the one that didn't. That was my only point.
Well, if that was true, they wouldn't truly be equal, because the one living in the city would probably know the city better. So.
Thank you.
Good answer. Okay. Councilmember Moran. Councilmember Lewis.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
A few questions. First, to ask a question, when you said about the part-time employees, that it being kind of a legal issue, what exactly is that issue? Because I know surrounding agencies, Arizona City being one of them, does employ part-time firefighters who are also full-time with other agencies. So I'm curious of what our legal issue is.
Well, that's 2 separate entities. if I hire a part-time employee in the city of Coolidge as a firefighter, or I should say, a firefighter that's a part-time employee, so we're going to pay them hourly instead of giving them a stipend. Problem is under the IRS, and I'm not sure what state laws, that's probably well above my pay grade, they're no longer eligible to participate in the volunteer firefighter pension plan. And so if the trade-off is if you go over here to part-time, you lose the pension plan. If they stay here and they do the stipend, they can participate in the pension plan. And that's a big battle up north. There are a few districts, fire districts up north that have tried to skirt that issue, and they're starting to see some queries come back from the legal minds questioning that, and so we'll see where that goes. But for now, if they want to maintain the pension plan, it's the best to stay truly volunteer and do a stipend instead of an hourly wage.
That's if we have a volunteer who wants to be part-time, but that's not what I was asking.
Right. And we don't have a classification for a part-time firefighter right now. That would be something I'm assuming I would have to bring back here, and we would have to have further discussions on that.
Okay. I was just asking, I was curious what the legal, because I know other cities are doing it. I wasn't specifically asking if we had a volunteer who wanted to be part-time,
Right.
because I understand, yeah, they can't do both. But if we had a firefighter, let's say from Casa Grande, who wanted to come work part-time here, if we had that position, I was curious of what the legal issue was you were talking about, because I know it doesn't exist.
Yeah, see, we would be paying them hourly. They wouldn't be eligible for the pension plan.
Okay.
And if they work full-time somewhere else, and they're getting the public safety, they couldn't participate in the volunteer pension plan, is my understanding, even though that's a different system, just because it's both a firefighter pension plan.
Okay. And for the captain position, we're allowing the volunteers to apply for that position as well?
If any of them feel that they're qualified, we will definitely consider them. I'm not going to say yay or nay to everybody. They need to have, like, the leadership 1, 2, and 3. They need to have a tactics class. They need to have some core classes. It can't be, hey, I've been here 6 months. I want to apply, and because that they wouldn't fare well. It wouldn't be fair to them to put them through that process.
So under the current requirements, are there any volunteers who would qualify?
I can think of one for sure, 2 possibly.
So we have a very small pool then.
Very small pool.
And both the full-time guys who aren't captains are qualified.
Are qualified.
So we're looking at 3 to 4 people
3
who are
to 4.
qualified.
And I'm pretty sure the one volunteer will probably put in for it. The other one I kind of doubt from the conversations I've had with him, trying to see if he's interested.
So down to 3, very limited pool. Okay. And then in the hiring process, because you talked about the testing process and the different stages.
Right.
Is there, because I've been involved with hiring processes for public safety for other areas, there's always been like a panel at the end where there's somebody from the fire department, somebody from another agency, somebody from the city, even maybe a citizen involved in the scoring process. So there is absolutely no way there's favoritism any way, shape, or form.
Right.
And I think with a pool of 3, that would benefit us.
Yes. I guess further discuss that on the practical piece of this and on the panel interview, my preference and my goal would be to have someone maybe from Florence, Eloy, Casa Grande, a captain or a battalion chief level officer, put them together and in each of these stations there would be 2 or 3 graders, and have people from the outside. I would only see their final grade. I wouldn't see their comments. I would just see their final grade. And then, so the only really interaction I'm going to have would be to do the last chief's interview, just to talk to him. And that would be after the other steps are done. So,
with our pool being limited to 3, what would be the odds of opening up to anybody to have the best pool possible?
we can definitely do that. And if we have if we end up with like a pool of 2, just the 2, I would be compelled to open up outside. But I would really rather try and see if we can get the pool of 3 inside, let them test, and see how they do, before we open up and start bringing in people from the outside. I would really like to give our guys the chance to shine.
And I also see on there it says EMT or paramedic, but in our current pool we have no medics. So and having
Right.
a paramedic I think is more beneficial.
If we were to go outside, we would accept EMT or paramedic, or EMT or better. And definitely if, once again, like the city requirement, if I get two guys that are totally equal on everything, but one has the medic patch, I would tend to get the medic so that we could look at, in the future, the community paramedicine and the best care for the citizens of Coolidge.
Okay. And I don't remember who said something, asked a question about what happens if somebody's gone. I believe your response was you fill the truck or volunteers or something else. I know from yesterday back, more often than not, there's one guy on the truck if somebody's gone, which from the volunteers who I've talked to and what I'm hearing is we're having a lack of volunteers interested in coming out for whatever reason, which could be looked at in a different day. Now,
I just want to, Mr. Mayor, members of council, we're here to discuss the full-time captain position. So if we're related to that, I think we're good. If we're moving down the field a little bit, we got to be a little careful.
all right, well, then I'll save it for another discussion.
That's one of your old tricks, Mr. Fitzgibbons, withdrawn, but everybody heard it anyway. So we will.
I had a lot more to say, so we're safe.
So we will, we'll continue forward, and this is just for a discussion.
Yeah.
So if we have anything else related to the full-time fire captain position, I did say full-time this time, I'd be willing to listen. If not, I guess we need to move on to item 23. Is there anything else? Okay, number 23. Consider approval of entering into a, you want to talk?
I was just going to say that you did say on the interview process that you were going to have other personnel from other jurisdictions
Right.
on that interview process.
That way it's not biased by me.
Okay. And just your question about the residency, it used to be that way, and it was taken out sometime.
I guess we need to reconsider that.
We don't have anybody currently outside the city, correct?
Just me.
Besides the full-time captain already.
We have one full-time captain that lives just outside the city, and then me.
Then, yeah, okay.
Rob,
And
why
that's,
don't
and
you-
I'm in the process of moving in. And I have been spending some more time here, but yes, my primary residence legally is outside the city.
he's going to move into that station number 2 out there in Val Vista.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Number 23, consider approval of entering into a major accounts agreement addendum between ADP Inc. and the City of Coolidge, adding the HR Solutions services to the current ADP Workforce Now products, waiving the city bid procedures in the best interest of the city, authorizing the city manager to execute the necessary documents. Lisa?
Honorable Mayor and members of council, normally this would be presented to you by your HR director, but we're still currently looking for an HR director. That position has been vacant since the middle of August. Now that the former position did fall under the city clerk, and she's been keeping up with the urgent matters under HR, but yeah. Because this affects our budget, and this was not something that was budgeted for in this current year, I've agreed to present this to you, and I think I know most of the facts, so we'll just go forward with that. Basically, ADP is the one who's running our payroll system right now. Our timekeeping services are done through them. The employees are able to punch in and out on a computer into the system, and they are running our payroll for us. They print our checks for us. They print our W-2s for us. They do our COBRA compliance for us. They do a lot of things for us, and this would just be one more thing that ADP would be doing for us. And basically, I think a lot of your employees are looking at a third party to do this type of compliance for them. It's the Affordable Care Act, which requires employers with 100 or more full-time equivalent employees to provide health insurance to at least 70% of employees by 2015 and 95% of your employees by 2016. Now, all of our full-time employees are given we pay 100% of their health care insurance for them, but we do have individuals that work seasonal, part-time, and temporary for us, and those are the ones that kind of fall through the cracks sometimes. And what it says basically is that if you have 50 or more employees, that you have to file forms for each employee with the IRS by February 28th of this next year. So for the year ending December 31st of 2015, we have to basically run a form. It's called Form 1095C for each of our employees. So in addition to the W-2 forms, we will now have to give them a form called 1095C. This form will, for the first year, for 2015, we can still file paper. Our forms paper-wise, we don't have to actually file them electronically, which is good for us because once you have to file them electronically, then you have to be certified to file them electronically. And of course, ADP is doing that for their clients. The line they draw the line at 250 forms. If you have to file 250 or more forms, then you have to file electronically. Right now, we're sitting at about 233 forms that would have to be filed, and that's because we have a lot of seasonal employees, and then we have a lot of part-time, or what do we call the transit positions? Not necessarily part-time, but intermittent part-time, right. So we have a lot of people that may work just a few hours for us in a given year, but we would still be required to file a form for them. And we need to make sure that we are providing insurance for everyone. And I guess the best scenario I could give to you that would help you understand this is, and I won't mention any names, but we did have a temporary employee that started out in the finance department last year, moved into working some under city council, then moved in under city clerk. Once that individual had worked at least 30 hours a week, and I believe it was 90 days, we can't really exactly remember, but we did have to provide, offer insurance to that individual who did take the insurance. Had we not offered insurance to that individual, had we not realized that she was working, more than that 90-day period for 30 hours or more per week, we could have been subject to a fine of up to $2,000, maybe $3,000 per individual if we don't catch all of those that are working, those hours in that time frame. So basically what ADP has said is, yes, we will offer this service to you, but of course there's a cost. And to offer this service, one of the nice things is we requested some bids through some other carriers. We talked to our insurance broker who had said that he had an individual that was offering this type of service, and it's based on so much per individual. We also talked with Cassell, who is basically the rest of our financial package is under Cassell, and they did not send us a bid for doing this type of service for us. So we sought 3 bids. We really only received this one. We're asking that you waive the bid process in the best interest of the city, although we did talk to 2 others. The difference is that ADP holds our payroll records, and so whoever's going to do this service for us, we have to be able to upload our payroll information to them, and most of them are going to charge a conversion fee and different fees to take in your payroll information. ADP already has our payroll information, so we don't have to pay the conversion fees. But basically, to be able to use their package, they want us to purchase their human resource package, which is going to be a one-time cost of $3,500. Now, that doesn't just do the ACA compliance reporting for us. It gives us some other features for human resources, so it's not just for that, but it would be a one-time fee. 2015 is going to cost us basically $1.50 per form that they have to issue, and we actually have to work through a lot of the legwork on that, and then they will actually electronically file the form, even though we could file it paper-wise if we wanted to. After that, starting with January 1st, they will monitor all of our employees for the year at $6.50 per person per month. So it comes up to a fee of, I think I had it outlined on here. It's on the back side. Basically, $9,672 extra dollars per year to have this form filed electronically for us because they have our data. I would suggest that we do that for this next year because we don't have a human resources director at this time. Should we get someone by the end of the year, they're going to have a lot of things to catch up on because we haven't had that position in for a few months now. I would hate to saddle them with having to worry about our ACA compliance for the first year and for certainly each one of those months that starts with January. So I would suggest, even though it's not budgeted, and we would charge it against the general fund miscellaneous, for this first year, and then it would move into the human resources budget as we develop next year's budget. But I would suggest that we do it, we sign this contract and we enter into this agreement and we pay the one-time fee. I'm sorry, it's $3,750 for the HR component, and then work forward after this. And it may be that the human resource, whoever we hire, comes in and says, we don't really need to do this. There is a 30-day out clause on this, on all of ADP's agreements. We can give them a 30-day notice and be out of this agreement for this service. But we will have paid that $3,750 one-time fee. But again, it gives us other features in there other than just this ACA reporting. So I would suggest that we go forward with it, but I'm open for questions.
Well, it doesn't appear that anybody wants to be our HR director.
They don't want to.
Mr. Flatley.
No, we have, on December 3rd, we have interviews with 4 people.
Okay.
Right.
Well, that's news.
So it's good, and it could be that they come on and say, you know what, I don't need anybody to report this for me. We can do this on our own, and we don't need it. And again, but once we sign this agreement and we go forward, we will be charged with that $3,750 for one-time fee.
Okay. Any questions down here? Go ahead, Gary.
I got a quick question for you. Where I work, we use ADP, and I actually enjoy it. It's a very useful program. Now, I'm not sure what level of program my employer uses versus what we're going to get. With our agreement with them, are our employees, is it the system where they can go on, they can change their tax withholding and look at their benefits, do all that stuff on their own?
They can go in, and I don't know that we allow them to change their tax withholdings on there, but they can see what they are at least, because a lot of people forget what they're doing. And they can see their information. They can look and see how much vacation time they will have at any given point. So if they're putting in for a vacation and they don't have 2 weeks accumulated, they know when they will have 2 weeks accumulated. They can see a myriad of information, pretty much anything on their...
Pay stubs are on there as well?
Yes. And right now, we are using the timekeeping component, and that's originally what we were going to start with, but we kind of went all the way into the system and basically outsourced our payroll. I don't know that I intended to do that. It's been great for a number of purposes, but I'm kind of thinking that maybe this next year we may back off and go back to Cassell, but they do have a new package out. Our Cassell software right now is about 7 years old, I believe. And they have a new package out, and it would be interesting to see what their timekeeping component is. It's not comparable right now. It's to what we're being able to do. People can go on any computer and log in, time in and their time out.
Would there be a reason why we don't allow the employees to use the ADP to change their tax withholding information? Because I love the ability to change it if I need to, not that I do, but having that access without having to drive the HR during the week, because you can do it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week through ADP, versus having to go during business hours. Is there a reason why we're not doing that?
And I would just have to look into that, because I think we chose not to have them do it right now because we keep a file in their personnel file, based on what they're claiming, on their taxes. I don't know what the requirements are. I mean, are you required right now to provide a signed copy of that, or is it just
when
on
I
the...
initially got hired, we did a signed one, and my
Sure.
signature's on file. And every time that we change it, that gets sent
It generates
electronically
one.
to HR, so they always have it in the system.
Right. And providing
where it goes
that...
from there, I don't know. I just know it
Right.
gets changed and they keep it.
Well, it makes sense because each individual has a password, and you're not allowed to give your password to anyone else. So there shouldn't be anyone ever logging into their system and changing any of their withholdings or anything like that. So it's probably something that we could allow, but I don't believe right now, Rachel, does it? I don't think that we have allowed it so far, but we could.
I don't think it's imperative. It's just a nice feature to have because I've
Right.
actually used it before, and it's nice to have it. So.
Well, truly, and therefore, I mean, we do have a 30-day window. When people give us changes, there is a 30-day window. It takes 30 days for it to become effective, and then if you want to change it back, it takes 30 days for that to become effective. And we pretty much put that in place because twice a year we have 3 pays in a month. And people would come in and basically give the payroll. We only have one payroll clerk. And people would come in and basically give the payroll clerk a change to go exempt for that one pay period. And at the same time, give her another form to take them back on the following pay period. But then, of course, if we neglected to put them back on the following pay period, then it was a problem for us. So, yeah, if auditors aren't having an issue with people changing those online, I don't see any reason why we couldn't offer that.
I think that's why my employer uses it, because having 10,000 people changing their thing at one time is going to be crazy.
Well, and it does make it your responsibility, and the capability is in the system. So,
yeah, thank you. That's it.
Vice Mayor. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can change mine at any time on a system, but we use PeopleSoft. It's big, but I can go in and alter it. But
yeah. And we could offer that. It's certainly a capability. We just haven't as yet. But
it'll save the payroll clerk some time.
It's a great idea about going exempt and then going back. I didn't.
Well, and what I would tell people,
taxes,
what we would tell the employees is it's not a good idea to do that because you're going to pay those taxes at the end of the year when you fill out your forms. So, yeah,
you got to pay some.
It's going to get paid at some point.
Nothing else, Rob?
Good, thank you.
Steve? No? Okay, not hearing anything further, I would look for a motion.
Motion to approve is read, sir.
Second.
Motion approved. In a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you. I'm sure the new HR director, whoever that may be, appreciates this.
Thank you. Okay, report from the mayor and council and our city manager. I'm going to start down here with Council Member Marietta.
I have nothing to report.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I have 2 things. One, I guess Wednesday is Veterans Day, so I'd like to give thanks to all the veterans who have served our country. And second, on the 19th, because we're having our retreat on the 20th, so on the 19th I have scheduled 2 meetings of sorts. It's like a meet and greet, if you will, for 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. for Thursday. And this is going to be held here in the chambers. It's not an official meeting. There's no agenda, no voting. It has been put out possible quorum in case there's 4 of us there, which I don't anticipate. There is very possible to have a council member at each one of those other meetings. I did 2 times to better accommodate the citizens. And the reason why I'm holding the meeting is to, we get a lot of, at least I've heard a lot of people say, well, the council doesn't ask the citizens or involve the citizens. Well, we don't get people who come to the meeting to involve themselves, so I'm giving them an opportunity before we have a retreat to let us know, where you want to see the city go. If you have any information, it's going to be a real calm meeting. Myself and whoever's there will answer any questions we can answer. It's a perfect opportunity. If you want to be involved, come in and let's talk. And I will have light refreshments, so if you don't, come in just for a cookie or something, that's fine too. But it is open to the complete public. It's open to city staff. That's why there's 2 meetings, so they can come if they want. Like I said, it's a real informal meeting. I even hate to call it a meeting. But I would love to hear the citizen input before we go to our retreat on Friday. And I'm going to actually be doing this more often. It's just in November, it kind of worked great with our retreat. So I look forward, and hopefully the papers here, maybe they'll say something about it. But I look forward to seeing whoever wants to come out and let us know where they want to see the city go.
Sorry, I missed your breakfast last Thursday. I did attend the ribbon cutting of the for the gas tanks at the airport. That's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you. Down here.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to wish the mayor a happy birthday. I gave it yesterday.
Let's just forget about that.
You're like 48, right?
Yeah,
46?
yeah, I'm like 48.
46 looks good on you.
Yeah, I'm like 48.
But I also would like to. I attended the fuel ribbon cutting. That was a really nice event. There was a lot of with the vice mayor and the mayor, and then there was a lot of flyers already out there. The lions were cooking, and John Bagnall stopped by earlier. He wanted to thank the council and the staff for their support for the flying, and for them to be able to cook. So they wanted to express their thank you, and they're continuing to do it. I know it's a city activity now, but they're very happy and thankful and grateful. Also, let's see, what else did I have? Also want to wish all the veterans, thank them for their service, sacrifice, and this Wednesday is Veterans Day, so it'll be very nice. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And the city will be closed.
Yeah, I went to the Coolidge Economic Development Committee meeting, and it was a great meeting. Councilman Huddleston also was there, and then I did also go to the Breakfast with the Bear, and I thanked Mayor Thompson and Rick Miller. Did a great presentation. I think it was well received by the business community, and we look forward to having more of them, Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
CEDC lunch was great. I really appreciate all the work they do out there, and I just really like to get there and chew on some private enterprise ideas. I think it's key.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Flatley.
All right. As Lynn said, there's a chamber luncheon on the 18th at the Coolidge School District Boardroom. And then, of course, the retreat on Friday. That'll be at the Adult Center. It starts at 8 in the morning. We'll have a continental breakfast, and we'll go through lunch. We'll bring in some sandwiches for lunch. This will be for the City Council, and Mayor has asked that a couple of us be there. Lisa, Norma, myself, and Dennis will show up at noon. In case there's any legal issues that need discussing. He has court in the morning. Otherwise, we have a Little Mermaid show Saturday at 7 p.m. at Artisan Village. It's a bunch of local youth that have been rehearsing for some time. It'll be a really cute show. Chrissy Frater is the director. So that'll be 7 o'clock on Saturday. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Fadley. I don't have much. We did have breakfast with the mayor last week, and that's an event. That was our first one, actually, that involves the chamber and the business community. And speaking with myself, and Mr. Miller was kind enough to be there. Susanna was there, and Bob was there. But it's mainly a situation where they have an opportunity to ask us questions, and we give them an update on what's happening. Unfortunately, in this business, things change pretty quickly, so you can have your information and then it's outdated, but at Thursday night and Friday morning, it's old information. So, but I thought it went pretty well. I was glad to see a lot of the members of the business community were there. I continue to say the only way Coolidge is going to move forward and be successful is if the businesses and the city and the school and everybody works together, because if we don't, I've already experienced, we go out and try to do regional work, and regional work is fine unless it involves Coolidge sometimes. And I think we're going to have to help ourselves. And the people in this room are the ones that are going to have to do it. So we need to work together, and I think we're doing a pretty good job. I would like to say Wednesday's Veterans Day, and God bless and thank all the vets. They did a heck of a job, and we can sit here now and have these conversations because of what they did. So in saying that, I'm going to look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, sir.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you for coming.